Hello there.
And welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at another budget anamorphic lens that is the little brother to one that I looked at in my last video. This here is the 35mm f1.8 anamorphic lens by the company Siri. Their previous product was a 50mm f1.8 and it generated a lot of interest in the budget filmmaking crowd. So because of that popular demand, we have an expansion here on the same lineup of budget anamorphic lenses with the 35mm variant. Speaking about my last video, I have a couple of corrections to make about what I presented as the history of anamorphic lenses in filmmaking. This is what I said. They needed a place to store the audio, recording it alongside the video. So on the same piece of film that the image was being shot on, they would cram the audio right next to it vertically along the image. This made for a smaller area to record video to, and that's not right. I read the wrong article and misinterpreted what it said, so I'm sorry about that. So the real reason that anamorphic lenses started being used to shoot movies was that movie studios were competing with television for the very first time in history. A new aspect ratio was one way that they could distinguish themselves. However, a widescreen format alone left a lot of unused real estate on film slides, and it resulted in an overall loss of quality when it was projected again. So anamorphic lenses allowed movie producers to shoot widescreen formats and retain maximum image quality from the film it was shot on. Okay, history lesson over. Let's check this lens out. In the box, you get the lens, and unlike its big brother, you get some accessories too. There's a lens pouch to protect it when traveling or storing it. You also get something that I thought would be a good idea in my last video, and that was geared focus rings. These are separately labeled focus and aperture, and they slip right over the existing rings on the lens. And finally, I don't know if this is a permanent addition or just something for the review sample, but there's an E-mount adapter ring that needs to be installed. Originally, I removed the micro four thirds mount to put this on, only to realize that it actually mounts over the top of the existing mount. But it only took a few minutes, and here we have an E-mount version of this lens. This lens feels very premium, just like the 50mm did. It's all aluminum construction, a metal mount, which you guys have already seen, and the fit and finish is as good as any other quality lens in this price range, which we'll get to shortly. The focus and aperture rings are unbelievably smooth. Possibly too smooth? Is that a thing? I know some people prefer a little bit more resistance, but I like how gentle you can be with this lens and still pull focus. Now, 35mm lenses are typically larger than their 50mm counterparts when it comes to really bright apertures. However, this one seems to keep it very compact, and it's just barely bigger than the 50mm brother of it. There are some lighter options out there, but this one isn't too bad to handle in the least. So let's talk about its price. It's a 1.33x anamorphic lens. Let's see what the competition costs. Well, when you type in 35mm anamorphic into B&H, you get this bad boy that costs a whopping $50,000. Let's see what else there is. Okay, here we have the SLR Magic that is $2,600. However, you lose a stop of light with that lens compared to the Siri. So what about the price for the Siri? Well, this lens has got a Kickstarter campaign that goes live August 3rd, and early bird pricing will be $599, so $600. And if it goes the same way that their 50mm did, the actual retail price will be $100 more than that. So again, they have brought a lens to market that is quite literally thousands of dollars cheaper than the next closest thing, which is great for everyone who's running on a budget, which is basically all of us. Come on, if you're watching this video, we're running on a budget, right? But then that begs the question, how does it perform? This video here, we're going to be checking out the differences between this lens and a wildly popular video lens, the Sigma 18-35. This lens is known for being razor sharp, having spectacular bokeh, and it costs $640, so it's neck and neck with the price point. I chose this lens because the focal length and aperture can match, and they both have similar use cases with budget filmmaking, and of course the matching price point. First things first, and by far the most obvious difference is the field of view. These two lenses have the exact same field of view vertically, however the anamorphic can see 1.33 times more horizontally. So it sees as much as a 26mm would across the width of the image. The anamorphic accomplishes this by squeezing the image down horizontally to fit onto the camera sensor, which you then have to unsqueeze in post-production. So despite the fact that these are mathematically the exact same focal length, the difference in what you can see is pretty significant. That gives you the widescreen cinematic look. You could use a wider focal length and just crop the top and bottom out, but we'll save that for another video. So now let's check out the minimum focus distance. Its big brother, the 50mm, left a little bit to be desired, as it only could focus as close as 0.85, and that is the exact same distance as the 35mm. It's okay, but not quite enough to let you get really any super up close shots or macro shots, but it can still fill the frame vertically. As you can see, I'm filming right here on it. This is minimum focus. This is what I'm shooting at right now. I can't get any closer. Minimum focus right here. I have no doubt that this is a limitation of the optical design to get it to that price point. And how often are you really filming much closer than this, especially with the 35mm lens? So at the end of the day, I'm okay with it if it brings the price down to where these are. Now the Sigma, on the other hand, is nearly a macro lens with how close you can get with it. You can get insanely close and still get focus. Check out this picture here. You see this little green spot on the tree? This is at minimum focus with the 35mm series lens. And this is the exact same spot on the tree at minimum focus with the Sigma. It's pretty ridiculous. That's really close. So now what about image quality? Well, this whole talking head portion has been with this lens, and you really can't fault it for lack of sharpness. Particularly because anamorphic lenses aren't necessarily designed to be super sharp. They're designed to give a specific look. It's still pretty sharp though. The background blur with this lens is inoffensive, and you get pretty little oblong shapes that anamorphic lenses are known for. And it's just a nice looking image as far as this. I feel like it just looks good. Maybe it's just the cinematic look getting to me. I just think it looks good. But just for kicks, let's nitpick a couple photographs and see how sharp this truly is when we pixel peep. I know not many people use anamorphic lenses for photography. Maybe you do. Maybe a select few of you will find this useful. Maybe you shoot in 12K via the new Blackmagic camera. So right here we've got a few low light shots showing the series keeping up with the Sigma by what I can see. We have f1.8, and it's a little soft with both lenses. f2.8, it sharpens up nicely. And a side note, which I noticed, we have some lovely star streak effects going on. So let's go ahead and take it down to f8 and f16 and see how it looks. Most lenses don't produce it quite as severely as this. It's kind of cool looking. But let's check out some daylight pictures so we can really get a nice fair comparison here. Surprisingly enough, at infinity focus, the series at f1.8 and f2.8 seems to be a touch sharper than the Sigma. At f5.6, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. Now let's pull it into minimum focus. The series seems to be a little smeary, and there doesn't seem to be really a place here that it's super sharp. The Sigma does a little better than the series across all apertures at minimum focus. Let's do one more close-up with a more legitimate photography subject, yours truly. And these samples reinforce the previous findings at minimum focus, showing the series trailing the Sigma just by a little bit, and it does look a lot sharper at 2.8, but the Sigma is just crazy sharp at 2.8. Overall, this lens did all right. The close-up subjects leave a little bit to be desired on the magnification as well as the sharpness, but neither of them are a deal breaker. But how does it do in full frame mode? Well, the vignetting is pretty extreme, which you can see here, but that's as expected. This is an APS-C lens. But can you get a wider field of view from shooting in full frame video? You can actually. Running clear image zoom, which most Sony cameras have, you can zoom in between 1.2 and 1.3 and still get a full 4K readout and gain an additional 24% field of view both vertically and horizontally, which after the anamorphic squeeze gets you to nearly the same field of view as a 20mm lens would give you on an APS-C sensor. So from a 35mm lens, that's a pretty significant boost. Pretty cool. All right, now last but not least, let's take a look at another anamorphic lens staple, the lens flares. This lens produces the expected cinematic sci-fi nighttime action sequence lens flares that many of us had come to love or maybe just associate with high-end productions. And as you can see, this lens adds them only on particularly bright direct light. The dimmer lights have a little, but it's less noticeable, as you can see here on the string lights. So there you have it. There's another cool lens at an unbeatable price. So there really isn't much to fault here. It's hard to really mess up a fully manual lens. The anamorphic is cool, and it absolutely holds up to how well its big brother, the 50mm, performed. Also, don't forget to check out the Kickstarter and maybe snag one of these lenses with the early bird discount. Also, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on me comparing these anamorphic lenses to additional focal lengths and different things that are comparable, but not quite the same. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.